Canelo Alvarez is indeed the undisputed super middleweight world champion, indeed the first ever at 168 pounds, sixth in total now in history, following, of course, in the footsteps of Josh Taylor earlier this year. What Josh does, Canelo follows. But it wasn't as simple as that, as we're about to find out. I think this is after the Bell Mirror Fightings boxing show. I'm Martin Domin, joined by Barry Jones and by Declan Taylor in the wee small hours. Barry, I should say, actually, I haven't even said how the fight ended. Canelo Alvarez winning in the 11th round, Plant down twice. The fight stopped after the second one. Barry, we were just talking off camera about the scorecards. They were all in favour of Canelo by 2, 3, and 4 rounds, I think. But you had Plant up at time of the stoppage, I believe.
I did, yeah. It was a close fight, but I thought Plant was boxing quite well, to be honest. I thought he was boxing really well. But, it's irrelevant. I think, almost giving the scorecards out when a guy's got stopped, sort of, it just causes trouble. Because now, especially the cards were they had Canelo so far ahead. I couldn't see it like that. And now people are going to talk about that more than it wasn't a great fight, but it was good. It was intriguing, but it was a great finish. And Canelo did what great fighters can do. Have an off night or underperform or not box great or whatever, but still get the finish in impressive fashion, and that's what he did.
Okay, Declan, let's not talk about the scorecards then. What did you think of the 10 and a bit round?
Do you know what? I was sort of with Barry there. It wasn't a thriller, was it? It wasn't a thriller. And Plant, to his credit, knew that was the only way that he would have a chance of winning. It was to try and slow the pace down, not do too much, not get greedy at any point, which he didn't do. Try and frustrate Canelo, which he did do. But even though, I mean, we're not talking about scorecards, but if it had gone the distance, would he have got a decision on boxing like that? I'm not sure. The scorecards on Twitter were all over the shop. Like, it would have been a scream up whatever happened. I think it's interesting to see Canelo because obviously this was the final part in the jigsaw. It was never going to be an off night. He was never going to be under motivated or anything like that. Because obviously as well, he was so fired up from their little bit of rivalry that they had that then box flat at times was very interesting. I think you have to give credit to Plant for doing that, for sort of stopping him being able to do what he likes to do. But like Barry said, in the end, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because he get there. And I was sort of watching it like that. I was thinking, oh, this is kind of close. A bit like the Kovalev fight. It was at no point in the Kovalev fight did I think, oh, Kovalev's going to beat him here on points. I just thought he was going to get him eventually, and he did get him eventually. And the thing is with Canelo, it wasn't even like he set him up a massive big setup finish. It wasn't like he put pressure on and then finally got him. It was just like from out of nowhere. It was just like, gone. See you later. Same with Kovalev. Fight over. And that is the mark of a true great. It's not a rematch. I wouldn't be clamoring to see it again, despite how well Plant boxed. Although saying that, there's back foot boxing and there's not doing an awful lot. I think that he was sort of in between the two. He was never going to win the fight like that, I don't think. But credit to him, he frustrated Canelo. But in the end, doesn't really matter, does it? He's going to get him eventually.
I think tactically, it was in this. He didn't throw loads of punches because if you throw loads of punches with Canelo, you can't hurt him. Then he's going to fire back, and while you're throwing, he slides into distance, and that's when he gets you. And you're talking about using your height. Height shows sometimes a disadvantage. It's the reach that's important. But Plant used his height because if what he did, he turned that left shoulder forward, so Alvarez can't hit him with the right hand. It was hard to hit him with the right hand clean, so he was hitting him in the kidneys, and then he leaned back on the back foot, so it made it hard for Canelo, being a much shorter fighter, to hit him with a left hook to the chin. So a lot of the left hooks were hitting him on the forearm or on the chest, which he could take, and the right hands were hitting him behind the elbow, which obviously you might have slowed him down, but he's not taking him on the chin. He's not taking him flush, and then he would fire off that Plant, and his jab, and he was feinting quite well, and no one was dominating anything. There was no point to that, but there was no point like in the Billy Joe Saunders fight when Billy was doing well. There was always that thought that Canelo's definitely going to get you. There was times in that fight where you think you got to snap into gear now, Alvarez, because you're walking him down like you always do, making him work hard. But I don't think he was making Plant work overtime like he was with Billy and other fighters. And I think that was down to the tactics and the confidence that Plant had, to be fair. Listen, we thought, we were speaking the other week, me and you, weren't we, Declan? We thought that, we were both in agreement that literally he was just going to make him work really hard, be competitive in the early rounds, and then get blasted out. And it wasn't that. He got blasted out, but it wasn't that way. It was not out of nowhere, but it was a very mundane and very uninspiring performance from Canelo. But like you say, he's a great fighter and he got the win, and that's all that matters.
The thing with Plant, you mentioned there that he was, almost tucking up behind the shoulder, and he would often would just hold his feet at that point as well. He wouldn't go anywhere, and that just shows that Canelo wasn't really working. He wasn't doing enough to make Plant think, "Wow, I can't stand it." He was happy just like there, maybe 5 out of a counter, walk off. Like half the time, he was stepping away, and it was like, okay. And Canelo was getting frustrated by that, I think, because he wasn't. A bit like, the Smith fight, Callum Smith fight, you think he's pressuring him with his feet the whole time, and Smith's just knackered and just drain, because he's constantly having to work every second of the fight. Plant didn't have to do that, and I think that was because of him. Credit to him for being able to do that. But in the end, doesn't really matter. He's lost his belt, but his stock rises.
Yes, it does. Because they give the scorecards out, and we're talking about, they're ridiculously wide. But that'd be the narrative now. That'd be that. I wouldn't have got it anyway, and then all of a sudden, that'd be people from. He was going to get robbed. That'd be the story. Will go from it'd be Chinese whispers from being robbed that he was really winning the fight. Though I had him up, to be fair, but it was a close affair, and you also felt because it's Nevada that stealing rounds is not enough against a superstar. No, it shouldn't be that way. It should be irrelevant who you're fighting, but that's the case. And the guy who's pushing the pace, even if he's not being effective with the punches, sometimes gets the rub of the green more than the guy who's on the back foot.
Yeah, but I must say as well, because you made this good point before the Saunders fight, it was one of your few good points you've made in your last 10 years, that you said that you have to think about that when you think about trying to formulate a game plan. You have to go, we're never going to nick this. Yeah. You can't think, right, we'll try and nick it and then have a scream up when we don't get a decision. You have to, that when you go in. And look, that's one of the problems with boxing, but everyone knows that. Everyone knows you couldn't nick a fight against Mayweather at the MGM. You definitely can't nick one against Canelo. So you sort of have to bear that in mind. But he was doing it wasn't like I do feel like he could have been more active at times, but like you say, it would have probably just meant he gets countered more and probably would have got beaten quicker. So he sort of. But that's the problem when you fight a great fighter like Canelo. But yeah, credit to him. But in the end, it's a generational talent. Yes,
exactly. Like you and I.
Exactly.
I was talking to Martin.
Let's not go down that road. Was there a sense that, really the first maybe couple of minutes of the first round, Canelo seemed happy just to see how things went. But after that very heavy on the hook, on the left hook, was there a sense that he was maybe overloading too much, maybe looking too much for that finish rather than setting himself up?
Well, he couldn't land with the right hand because of the shoulder turn. So that right side of the body was not a target for him. So he had to be left look happy. He was a frustrated character, and I think he looked lethargic to me, to be fair. And I honestly think he thought he was just going to walk right through Plant, because you watch Plant's other fights where he had trouble with Truax. No, not trouble. He won the fight, but he wasn't comfortable at times, and he gasses out a little bit in the mid stage. I think he thought it was going to be an easy night. Whatever he said on the press conference, I think he thought he just walked through this guy like so easy because he can't punch. And yeah, and I think Plant boxed at the right tactics to frustrate Alvarez. So yeah, but it wasn't a great showing from Alvarez. It wasn't one of his highlight reels, though the finish certainly is. But yeah, but apart from that, the performance was uninspiring, I thought, from Canelo, because you felt like he could quicken his feet. He did it now and again. He did little side steps, to quicken his up. But he could have done that more. He could have done that. He could have put more intense pressure on. Even if he wasn't having success, he could have put more intense pressure on Plant if he wanted to. It felt that way. But sometimes you just can't click into gear. And I felt that's what it... But then, again, we keep saying the same thing. he did all that. He didn't do all that, but he still got the win. And by the way, the finish, pretty special. I gotta be honest. You know, he is one of, if not the best finisher. Once he drops you, you might as well just say, "Yeah, I'll sit this out," because he's not going to miss with any other punch after this.
There's a lot of praise, rightly so, that Canelo's fought 4 times in 11 months, and indeed won all 4 belts in that time. Had that fight with Yildirim, which we could all have done without, I guess. But is there a sense that maybe as good as it is to see him as an active champion, maybe it taking its toll a little bit to be so active? I know, he's not necessarily been gone to the well every time, but it's still a lot. 4 fights, 4 training camps.
Yeah, maybe. I think as well, you got to think of remember what Vladimir Klitschko used to say when he was when it was heavyweight champion, and people would just turn up. Slightly different context, because the challenge was never quite on the level that Canelo's facing here, and Plant and people like that, and Smith and whoever, Kovalev. But I think psychologically, it must be hard being like that, being the number one, and just people turning up, and you just think, well, almost. He doesn't go through the motions in the gym, but it is the same. It's just Groundhog Day, isn't it? And then it comes around, and there is it's almost like a plus for him as well, because it means the experience of these massive nights it's just like water off the duck's back for him. And the people who turn up, it's like the biggest night of their career, and for him, it's just another one. But I think maybe it does take a toll a bit on. Maybe not take a toll, but it does affect the way that you approach a fight and the way you start a fight, because he looked. First few rounds, he looked like he was, I don't know, like it was just any other fight, because it is to him, and you sort of think this is a big one, and then before you know it, Plant's thinking, maybe I'm doing well here, but he's not as good as I thought. So yeah, maybe, but let's not even suggest that, because we don't want champions boxing twice a year. Like, we don't want to have a go. To be fair, what's that, 4 in a year or something like that? It's not exactly. He's hardly Jake LaMotta, is he? It's not like 4 a year. I'm sure he can handle that for the money he's getting paid. But what it does mean, he's basically in the gym the whole year. He would have had a couple of weeks off, so maybe it takes a toll. But I mean, I'm sure he can handle it.
That's 60 fights now at the age of 31. Quite incredible. We've just said 4 fights in the last year. Let's say he fights 3 times next year. Let's be conservative. Who we would like to see him in with now? I mean, he's got decisions to make, right? He's now got 4 belts. Let's assume he doesn't carry on with all 4 belts. Where does he go?
He's not going to. The belts are going to be irrelevant. I think he must just give them back and let everyone else go. Carry on their own. Because they'll drop a belt to fight him. Well, that's the truth. What's left for him? I think going at the light heavy, I think he can do it. He's done it before, and he can do it again. I'd love to see him against Beterbiev. It'd be a great fight. But why would you want to risk that legacy now? I mean, him losing to someone like Beterbiev doesn't stain his legacy to me, because he's reaching for greatness. But why would you? It doesn't make any sense to me. The Kovalev fight made sense because Kovalev was way past his sell-by date, even though still could be dangerous. So that was an understandable risk, but Beterbiev, he can be hurt. He's big and strong and powerful, and Alvarez is still not he's half an inch taller than me, for God's sake. Let that sink in. You know what I mean? And so it's crazy, isn't it? And what does he do now? I can't see what he fights for now. What does he fight for? He's just going on a world tour. I would. Just go on a world tour, fighting good fighters, but fun fights now. Just all fun fights. For the fans. But because if he can maintain this excellence, which he's done for way too long, he beats everyone who he wants to fight. Who's out there for him? Charlo moves up, maybe, and he fights him. To meet Andre, people have Andre. I think he's like a mirage. That Andre, they talk about him like he's the bogeyman for everyone. I don't see it. He's good, but I don't see it. And so I still can't see if anyone, the only one who beats him is Father Time, or he loses interest. That's it.
You would imagine at some point next year he will fight in Mexico, and again, you could fight anybody. You could fight you or I or Declan, and people would come out for that one. The one name that will always be linked with him, Gennady Golovkin, looks like he's going to fight at the end of the year. I guess it depends how he looks for that in that one. Is there still an appetite to?
Yeah,
I mean, I can't see that.
I think there is.
I don't know how that goes now, but
there's a massive appetite for it, and I think there's, like Barry's saying there, you're sort of looking at a surveying now, and there's no one jumping out at all. Like Orbiev is like the name that people are saying, but it's only because it's sort of like, well, who can we get who could possibly beat him? Let's chuck him in. But I think the Golovkin fight makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, particularly Canelo, who obviously, even though he got the win in the rematch, like, well, that people thought that a lot of people thought that he won that fight. There's still a lot of sort of people like me, for instance, who think he still hasn't beaten Golovkin. I didn't score him a winner in either of those fights. So I think the way to do it is to go and have a third fight. Golovkin is old and out of form, not out of form. He hadn't fought for ages. He actually looked decent in his last fight, but he hadn't fought for ages. Now's the perfect time to get him, probably stop him, or like he could stop him. And then that would be the way to go. There's the trilogy. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially because there's nothing else. Because I'm a bit like you, Martin, there, where you're a bit like, do we really want to see it now? We sort of had that. It feels like history, doesn't it? Canelo Golovkin, that rivalry. But I think the third fight is a really good option for Canelo. You know, he'll win the fight, whether he stops him or not. He's going to win the fight. Clearly, he's so much better. He learned so much from the first two fights. That's what I think he does next year, and I don't think we see him again until the summer.
I think
maybe just.
I think the Golovkin fight. I think it's a great. I think him and Golovkin are the perfect dance partners. They're always be a good fight, but you'd have to make Canelo a huge favourite now. I think than before, and that's the difference. No, I thought he lost the two fights actually, but the second fight he was much better. It was much closer, and he's been active and he's improved again. So I think but it's still a good fight for the fans to watch. I think that's. I don't want to sound too much like Frank Warren, but it's a good fight for the fans, and that's the important thing. And it is, but. Again, we're all just searching for stuff now, aren't we? I'm thinking fighters who haven't been massively tested at that weight or that level. Can they beat him? Maybe they got the right style, but no one's proven no one's proven that they can compete with him. That's the truth.
Thing is, what I think we've seen over the last year is he is totally and utterly addicted to boxing. I mean, his mantra says it all. I don't think we're anywhere near a point where he does a Marvin Hagler and goes, "That's me," and disappears. Like I think he's got ages left in him because he still feels fresh. I don't see him going out at the top. I see him ending up getting old or getting beaten by someone big. And like you said, it wouldn't be a shame. It wouldn't be a disgrace to lose to Beterbiev. And I think he's got a style to beat him actually.
Yeah.
But he does punch really hard, doesn't he? And it only take a couple of them, and it only would he get. He's so tough.
He couldn't intimidate. He couldn't intimidate Beterbiev. No, his presence intimidates fighters because they know he can hit hard and all that. I know when you go up in weights, that he's been an anomaly because when you go up in weights, you have to adapt. They have to adapt their styles like Mayweather did because you can't be that intimidating factor. But he hasn't. But I think against someone like Beterbiev at light heavy, he'd have to be a bit different. And I think he'd be a struggle. But I wouldn't be. No, I just don't make him probably a favourite. But what? For what? What's the worth the risk? He could get seriously hurt, and he's earned a couple of quid probably.
Well, that's what you do wonder, isn't it? Because he must be rich beyond his wildest dreams. His whole family is. Everyone who knows him is like for generations to come. You think, well, it's not about the money now. Then, so what is he doing it for? And I think it's just because he can't. He knows nothing else.
Final question. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's put Yildirim to one side. We've had, of the 3 fights in the last 11 months, which one was most impressive?
Remind me of them. Smith.
Callum Smith, Joshua Saunders, Caleb Plant.
Oh, Saunders for me, 100%. Saunders for me. I think the way that he figured him out quick, the finish was amazing. I thought he was bang on it from the start. He had to adjust as well, and when he did adjust, I think the Saunders fight out of that. Although Smith was a hell of a performance, he basically didn't let Smith get started whatsoever. I mean, they're great. A lot of people don't amass that little run over 5 years or 10 years, or even in a career as a champion, and he's done it like that. Like the whole thing. I mean, problem is we won't see anyone like this for a while. They don't come around very often, so it's sort of just want him to keep doing it and keep going.
Yeah, you do. I would probably say Smith, to be fair, because Smith had a lot of things because of the size and the height and the reach and he kept his shape quite well, and he just bullied him, and he did it arrogantly. Simple, he was blunt with his work. It wasn't loads of finesse that he can show. He just walked right through him. It was almost disrespectful the way he beat him, and I think that showed how much of a bully he can be. So yeah, I would say Smith.
I think he maybe there was a little bit in his head. He won't admit it, but I wonder whether in that Smith fight, Smith's so big and obviously powerful and long that he knew that he couldn't miss a step in that fight. So he was absolutely spot on. And by the time it got to tonight, he's already dealt with someone bigger than Plant. He's already dealt with a bigger puncher. He's already dealt with a better mover and a southpaw. It's like, well, this is more horses for course. I know what I'm doing here. And that was maybe why he wasn't quite at the races in the way that we would often expect him to be.
Well, it's one thing's for sure, Declan and Barry are always at the races.
Yes,
that is it. That is it from us tonight, not long after 5 a.m. Canelo Alvarez reigns supreme now, as we said, the undisputed super middleweight world champion. Until his next time, well, actually, no, we'll be back for him. Sorry.
I hope so.
He'll be back next year. We'll be back very soon. Until then, do take care.